Welcome back to the show. I'm Jed, of course, and today we are going to be talking with Reilly Brown, who I had the pleasure of chatting to back at New York Comic Con back in 2022, which about the his teaching at. I'm going to mess up the name, so I'll ask him when I bring him in. But he's here. He has a Kickstarter that he's doing with his son, which I found is really cool. So let's bring him in, find out about him and his project.
Hey Chad, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
That was it Domestica?
Domestica, yes.
Domestica, okay.
Yeah, I had a class over there, kind of teaching the basics of storytelling and comic book creation and stuff like that. And actually that class, because I couldn't use Spider-Man or Batman or whatever for the class, I used that as an opportunity to develop a new character with that, my son at the time was in kindergarten. He'd like came home from school with all these crazy characters and stuff. And I was like, oh man, this would be such a fun idea. Like the stories he was coming up with were just so like bonkers and out there and like so like, you know, it was just like the way that like a little kid would look at the world and the way he understood things to happen and just kind of everything he thought was cool. And I'd ask him what these drawings were, and he'd tell me, and I was like, oh man, like this, like Marvel and DC are not giving me stories this good. Like this is what I want to draw. So um I needed to come up with some, original characters and stuff for this Domestica project. And it was something like I'd wanted to do with him for a while. So I was like, oh, this is a great excuse to do that. Uh and having those characters and everything I designed for that class, I eventually had the opportunity to do a newspaper strip. And I was like, oh, well, guess what? I've got this great idea that me and my son do sometime. I just draw his characters for fun. I'd love to make that a whole story. And so I was approached by these guys that have a newspaper called the A Kid and a Comic, which is like, it's like a whole newspaper that's all comics pages, the whole thing.
Mhm.
And there's some really good creators on there, as well as some, new guys and upcomers. And I showed them what me and my son Will were doing, and they loved the idea. And so for the past couple of years, we've had this comic strip running. And then, um, I talked to the guys at Zoop, and they wanted to know if there was anything we could do together. And I was like, well, I've got this comic, the comic strip I've been working on that doesn't have like a any collected edition or anything like that. So would you be interested in publishing that? So that's what we're doing. We're doing a Zoop campaign to get the funds together to make a collection of this comic I make with with my son called Thunder Guardian.
Um, so tell me a little bit about your history with comics, both as a reader and as a creator, because I know you've done a lot of stuff prior to this within
Yeah.
the industry.
Yeah, I've actually been drawing comics professionally for nearly 20 years now, which is kind of crazy. It's been 19 and a half years so far. So uh but yeah, I started working at Marvel in 2005. And my first project was the 2005 holiday special. Uh and then after that, I kind of moved on to some fill-in issues on Cable and Deadpool, on the Cable and Deadpool series. And then eventually became the main artist on that series and just kind of like stuck with Marvel for, several years, working on a bunch of different things. And then, more recently, and, I kind of bounce around between various companies and various projects and create our own stuff. More recently, I did the Batman versus Fortnite thing uh, at DC, which was a lot of fun. And I don't know. Yeah, I've got a series called Forgotten Realms or Forgotten Runes, Wizard's Cult at Titan that's going on right now.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know. I've worked on a lot of things for a lot of people for a lot of years, I guess.
So, what about as a reader of comic books? Do you remember when you first got into them? Maybe the first one you read, or maybe the one that kind of made you go, "I want to do." I want to read more of these, or I want to do this?
Well, when I was a kid, I loved drawing, and so I always wanted to be an artist. And uh, but I never like I read newspaper comics, but I
Mhm.
never had any like Marvel or DC comics. I always wanted one, but I never you know had the opportunity. My parents never would go to the store and whatever I'm whining about, they're not gonna humor me with anything. So actually, no, that's not true. The one time, because I love the Spider-Man cartoon show. I think it's either Spider-Man or Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends or whatever. And so I always wanted a Spider-Man comic book. And the one time my dad was like, "Okay, I'll get you a comic. Which one do you want?" I was like, "All right, let's get Spider-Man." And I looked around and I saw the Spider-Man comic, but he had like a black costume on. I'm like, "This isn't Spider-Man." Like it says Spider. I kept looking. I was like, "Is this some kind of knockoff? What's going on here?" I was like, "This isn't Spider-Man. Like I don't know what this is." And so I didn't get it. I later learned, obviously, that was the famous black costume, but at the time I was just so confused. But eventually, when I went to middle school, a friend of mine had a birthday party, and as party favors, he gave everybody comic books. And so so once I saw that, I was like, "Oh my god, this is it. This is what I want to do." Like they've got all the cool you know heroes and mutants and robots and stuff, all like the same guy drawing the whole issue. Like this is awesome. So ever since then, that was just the plan, and that's kind of where I went.
So, getting back to Thunder Guardian, is there a overall story that you guys are telling?
Um, it kind of there it's a newspaper strip basically,
Mhm.
and so each but it's also an adventure strips, and it's told by a grade schooler, so it's kind of like a rambling semi stream of consciousness, just whatever idea pops up into his
Mhm.
head at the time. Which is one of the fun parts about working with a little kid, is like there is no concept of formal story structure or any of the stuff that I'm used to with like more professional writers. And so there is a story. Basically, the concept is Thunder Guardian is a superhero. He lives on the planet Mars, and he's got a bunch of friends. They're all superheroes, and they live in a space station that goes around Mars. And there's the bad guys, who's the unknown and all of his henchmen. Um, and at some point in the past, the Earth was destroyed, and so Thunder Guardian. So it's like Thunder Guardian and the Unknown are racing, more or less, to gather pieces of the Earth, like especially like culturally relevant pieces,
Mhm.
like maybe the pyramids or from Egypt or whatever, and to reestablish Earth society. But that's kind of the backstory, which has actually not yet come into play at all in the actual comic strip. So if what I'm saying, if you've read the comic so far and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? That is kind of the backstory, and hopefully we'll get to it eventually. But for the purposes of what we're doing, it's mostly Thunder Guardian fighting space pirates that look like giant boogers, and they've kidnapped his mom, and he has to rescue her.
Yeah, nice. So, um, what is it like, working with your son on this project? I mean, are, are there times where you're like, I'm not going to draw that, or
No,
we need a little more structure,
yeah,
or
yeah, it's a lot. Not so much stuff I won't draw. There's occasionally he'll have a lot of you know, like potty humor type stuff that I'll be like,
Mhm.
"Well, come on, yeah, that's not allowed." He's like, "Okay." So, but it is a lot of he just kind of will ramble off about something, and I'll kind of like listen and try to I record it all so I can play it back. And well, not all
Mhm.
of it. Like a lot of awesome stories have been like kind of lost because I was like, "Oh wait, let me get the recorder. Tell me that story again," and he tells me something completely different. So it's like, wait, but I'll take notes of all the good parts, and I'll try if like it needs more structure. I'll try to ask him to like elaborate on a certain character or be like, okay, wait, what happened here? Um, although that can be dangerous because sometimes if I try to get him to like retell something or explain, like, I'm like, wait a minute, you said this happened. That doesn't make any sense. He'll go ahead and like tell an entirely different story that comes up to that. I'm like, that's great, but these stories don't go together in any way. They use totally different characters, and now we're not getting to the main thing that we wanted to do. So I've kind of figured out how to just sort of like take notes, record what he says, and kind of just take the best bits and try to turn them into something that's at least somewhat sequential, you know.
Yeah. So does you what does your son read comics? I mean, I have a 8-year-old and he's currently goes between Dogman and Captain Underpants.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Will is huge on Dogman and Cat Kid and Diary of a Wimpy Kid too.
Hmm.
Those are like
Okay.
his favorite things. But he also reads plenty of you know, like Marvel and DC
Yes.
characters, like um like the Scooby-Doo Batman series he
Yep.
loves, and Tiny Titans, a lot of that stuff. And a
Yeah.
lot of the classic stuff. Like I'm actually like for bedtime, I've been reading to him the like he saw the X-Men 97 cartoon, was like, this is awesome. I want to learn more about the X-Men. You got to read me X-Men. I'm like, okay, well, it's been going on for like so many years. Like, where do you want to start? He's like, the very beginning. So I'm like, okay. So I've been
Which
reading him
version
these,
of the X-Men?
yeah, exactly. Which characters? He's like, no, start from the start. He's very insistent on that. He wants to know everything about them. So I've been reading the 60s Stanley and Jack Kirby stuff to him, which is like fun to like. It's been a long time since I've read that stuff myself,
Mhm.
and it's fun to revisit it and also to read it out loud because it gives me a lot more insight into like kind of some of the characters and like who they are in a way I didn't quite get before. Because I don't know, when you're actually saying the words yourself, when you're saying them out loud, you kind of start to learn, like, you become a little more familiar, I guess, with the uniqueness of each character's voice, sort of. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. Like I'm I don't know, like just picking up on different character traits of
Mhm.
the original characters I never really quite got before.
Yeah. That's interesting, and I can see how revisiting it now and reading it with your son, you can kind of get something new from it.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So, um, you know, when when you Zoop approached you and you said, "I have this project," what is it about Zoop that have you done crowdfunding before? Is this your first time?
Um,
Um,
yeah, I've done a little bit of crowdfunding before. I mean, I've I did the me and Fabian Nicieza had a creator-owned comic called Outrage that was published through Rocket Ship. Well, originally it was on Webtoon. Actually, it's still there. You can go read it right now if you want. Uh, but on Webtoon, it's just a webcomic platform. And so then we published a print version through Rocket Ship, and the way Rocket Ship does everything, it's crowdfunding. So,
yes.
uh, so I have done that a little bit, and actually I have a second volume of that coming out. I don't know. I've been saying this for months, but I think I just need to draw a new cover for it. But we're gonna do a second volume soon. So be on the lookout for that when Thunder Guardian's over. Uh, but um, but I approached, or I thought this would be a good project for Zoop. Mainly, well, because I had my own podcast for a long time, Hypothetical Island, and we're currently on an extended hiatus because my partner George O'Connor has been like super busy with like, he's done like he's had 2 new books coming out. He got married and like all this other stuff, so we just had to take a break for a while. Hopefully, we come back to it. But as we were talking about before the show, Zoop is so good. Jordan at Zoop is so good at like connecting podcasters and like interviews for all his creators. So I knew him pretty well from, setting up interviews on my own show. And so we, been talking, and when we wanted to do a Thunder Guardian collection, Zoop was kind of one of the first ones that came to mind. But also, I don't know, they were just super excited about it, and
Hmm.
crucially, they didn't balk at the format because Thunder Guardian is a newspaper strip. It's like horizontal instead of regular comic book thing. And everyone else I talked to was like really trying to bend over backwards to fit it into like a regular comic book shape. And I'm like, it's just not gonna work. Like I've looked at it, I've tried, it's gotta be sideways. And I don't know if you know anything about comic book retailers, but they really have a hard time accepting anything that is a different like shape or size than what they're used to.
Hmm.
So, that kind of meant that this project had to be a crowdfunding thing. And Zoop was just like, like, yeah, sure, let's do it. However you want, like whatever you want to do, whatever shape, size, whatever. I was like, okay, sweet. So that was, it was just kind of the easiest way to go about it.
And so, what are you offering for people who to get them to help? I think I checked that you've already reached your goals, so you're probably on stretch goals at the moment. Am I correct?
I don't know if we actually have any stretch goals. That probably would have been a good idea at some point. But but yeah, we are fully funded. And some of the, other backer rewards and stuff are I think we have some stickers. We've got like a print of just like a exclusive print that you can get just through the campaign. uh Me and Will are both doing commissions for people, so if you want to get a third grader's drawing of a character, you can that's
Hmm.
in there. Or you could get me to do it, which is a little bit more expensive, but that's okay. um and there's a digital version of the comic. There's, we got retailer incentives, and other stuff. Check it out. We've got some fun stuff in there. But
Cool.
yeah, I think
So,
I think the fun one is like Will drawing it, because like his drawings are absolutely adorable, and they're like exactly what you want, like a third grader's drawings to look like. And yeah, I think it's just kind of fun.
yeah, I noticed on like the cover photo on the campaign page is has the two, his drawing and your drawing
Yeah.
side by side. So, um,
Yeah, that's like all the characters he drew them initially, and then I take his designs and kind of try to like figure out how to make that work in my own style, which is, much more detailed and like a comic, like a regular comic book.
and how tough of an editor is he?
Um usually usually pretty lenient, although sometimes he'll look at it and be like, "Well, I guess this could be your version." And it's okay. Or he'll like tell me like certain details are wrong. He's like, "Well, he's supposed to have like a red lightsaber or whatever." And I'll be
Mhm.
like, "You drew a blue one." He's like, "Yeah, but I was thinking a red one." So, and so I'll have to deal with that. He could be a tough editor, yeah.
So, have you taken anything away from this project that you are looking to apply to your work on other projects?
Um, I there every project I do, I learn something. And it is interesting just from a storytelling perspective, like how, yeah, 'cause like I said, he has no concept of story structure or anything. So that's something to work with, is like, okay, I have to think of how to take whatever he says and turn it into a narrative, or at least something that makes a little bit of sense. Because I struggle with how much should I edit his stories or not, because like part of the
Hmm.
concept is sort of the craziness of what he's saying. But there is a certain level where it's like, well, I can't just forget and remember characters as often as he does, because I have to draw them in every panel and say, well, what is this guy doing the whole time? So there are things like that. But also because it's a newspaper strip, there's like a pacing issue where I kind of have to figure out, like, take the story he's telling me and then break it up into weekly slots or monthly or whatever, however often the book comes out. But like each strip has to stand on its own, at least somewhat, and to figure out how it fits in that format, it's a really fun challenge to go through.
And how has working with your son, I'm sure it's, done wonders for your, relationship with your son.
I mean, other than the creative differences, but no, it is fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's one of those things where like because being a comic artist is such a demanding job and takes so much time, but also being a parent is such a demanding job and takes so much time. I really wanted some place where the two things can overlap, and
Hmm.
so this was a great opportunity to do that. So it's like I can, have I can be working on something with him, but it's also still like for work, so to speak.
Hmm.
And if I go to a comic convention, um, he can sit there and like sign. Like in the past, we've had like prints and stuff that he drew, and that was fun. And when the first newspaper, a kid in a comic newspaper came out, we did a signing at the local comic book store, and that was pretty cool and exciting for him. Um so it's been fun. It's provided that space where like I can be a dad and a comic artist at the same time.
I'm sure you know, that's a great feeling that you're able to kind of include him in, your job.
Yeah, yeah. Although sometimes he does, he like first of all, it's past his bedtime. I was late to recording because I was putting him to bed. But he wanted me to let you know that you're interviewing the wrong guy. He's the one you should be talking
I
to.
know I should have had both of you on, but
No, it's past his bedtime. He couldn't, you know. But uh maybe some other time that could be fun.
yeah.
Uh
Now, do you guys plan on working on another project after this, or is that something that you would be willing to
I think it
probably
would be
definitely
fun.
want to do?
I I mean, I've still got a lot of Thunder Guardian material to work through, and so we might just do another, we're still doing the newspaper. We still got a kid in a
Mhm.
comic coming out. So we'll probably continue to do that for, oh, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how long any of it lasts. Like, will he eventually get bored of it? Because at some point, well, he's almost 9 years old. So at some point he's gonna get bored of this, right? Or grow up or something, which maybe he'll you know, want to keep doing it, or maybe like the characters will kind of like the story will change as his taste change. Like, will a 12-year-old version be a lot more like extreme with like spikes and blades and blood and everything? Like, I don't know. Or will he want to keep it?
Grim and gritty.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't. That might be interesting, but we'll see. We'll see how long it goes and how long the interest is there. It's hard to tell at this point. So,
Uh, I was gonna say he's about the same age as my son, who is about he turned 8 in September, so
oh, cool. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they're around the same ages.
Yeah, the Dogman group. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, he's already uh, saying he can't wait for the movie when it comes
Oh,
out at
it looks so
the
good.
end of the month. And then um, last year at his school they do Read Across America where they're supposed to dress up as the character. And last year he went as Captain Underpants, and this year he wants to go as Dogman. So
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
we 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 had to contact the teacher and make sure it was okay for him to be Captain Underpants because we got him like some flesh colored long pajamas, and then he had a pair of briefs over. So,
Right.
but
It's not too
no, that's
scandalous of a costume.
but no, that's pretty cool that you're able to have that and make that connection with your son
Yeah.
at this time in his life.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something. It's kind of like, you know, he's you got a kid, so they're always saying and doing funny, cute things or whatever, and I'm like, "This is not gonna last forever, so I gotta do it now." Like, I can't
Mhm.
wait, another 5 years. If I put it off, it's like he's not gonna be into this anymore. Or maybe he will. I don't know. We'll see.
And years later, when he brings somebody over, to the house for that he's interested in, you can say, "Hey, look what we did."
I totally embarrass him. That's true.
So, anything else about the campaign or the book that maybe you want to make sure people know about or that we haven't covered?
I I think we covered the gist of it. It's okay, so the story, what the contents of the book aren't gonna they're not gonna be just the stuff that's already in the newspaper. There's gonna be a bunch of that's gonna be maybe half of it, and it's gonna be a bunch of new
Okay,
material also.
cool.
And I'm like, honestly, I work so hard on this. Like, I really love the project, and I think I'm doing some of my best like artwork for it. So
Hmm.
and it's just so fun. I don't know. It's just a lot of fun for me just to do, like, to take these, you know, like his drawings and turn them into my version and just see how they compare and um see what I can do with them. I don't know. It's a ton of fun. And I hope that your listeners at least like go to the page and just take a look, even if they don't, want to buy a copy or whatever, which I
Hmm.
hope they do because I think it's going to be great. But just take a look at what we're doing because I think it's just a lot of fun.
Well, do you want to give one final pitch for the book? I mean, I know there's about a week left up on Zoop, and so still got a little time to jump in on the
Yeah,
project.
but yeah, it's actually a little less than a week now, so, get it while it's hot because it's not gonna be there forever. Don't walk, run. Uh, and yeah, I don't know, it's a fun story. It's a fun comic. It looks great. It's gonna be funny. It's gonna be cool. Remind you it's gonna remind you of all the stuff that you thought was cool back when you were in, like, 2nd and 3rd grade,
Mhm.
like, you'll read it and be like, "Oh my god, I remember when this type of thing was, like, I thought was awesome or hilarious or whatever." Like, it'll bring you back, and it's a lot of fun for that.
Well, nice, and we'll definitely when if you do a second volume, then we'll definitely have to have your son on with us, and
Yeah,
we'll get the other side of the story.
right.
But it was great catching up with you, and next time you have another project that you'd like to talk about, I'd be glad to have you back, and or we'll have you back for the volume two and get, like I said, get your son some airtime.
Yeah.
But again, it was a pleasure chatting with you. And where can people find you on social media if you're there?
Yeah, you could find me on, Instagram at, Reilly_Brown, and on Blue Sky, I think it's just Reilly Brown. That one I'm still kind of new on, so I don't entirely here, wait, let me see. I think it's just reillybrown.bluesky.com or something like that, or dot
Okay.
social or whatever it is. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, you
But
can find me. I'm not that hard to find.
yeah.
Like, look me up.
We'll continue to follow this project for over at Comic Watch, and um, again, I was glad chatting with you and catching up with you. And again, anything do you want to promote? Do you have coming up, or anything else? Or
Let's see, what else have we got going on? The collected edition of the first 5 issues of Forgotten Runes Wizard's Cult just came out recently. Um, and pending any diamond delivery shenanigans or that are going on right now, because that I know that can be a bit it's a bit spotty at the moment, but it's out there. They're in boxes
yeah,
somewhere, being shipped somewhere, and so keep an eye out for those. And we
okay,
should have new issues of that coming out relative. I mean, I don't know. I can't promise anything because I don't
yeah,
know, but I've got a whole issue and a half. Like, there's one issue completely finished, and another one we're halfway there. So it'll be start coming out again soon, I guess. Um, let's see what else is going on. I'm working on a collectible card game that's coming out soon for Ultraman. That's pretty exciting.
okay, cool.
And oh, also for any He-Man fans out there, if you buy the Masters of the Universe Origins comic or Origins figures, I'm working on some mini comics that come with those,
Oh,
which is pretty exciting for me because like you asked what my first comics were. I talked about the Marvel stuff, but honestly, when I was like 3 years old, the He-Man figures came with the mini comics. Like
Yeah,
those were really the first comics I ever read. So it's
I
totally
still I still have all mine,
yeah,
all the
yeah.
original ones.
I've got I've got like the Dark Horse collection of that they put out a few years ago, and it's got like the
Yeah, that
whole.
was nice.
It's so
Yep.
cool. But that's been a total blast working on those. And the figures I've done comics for haven't been announced yet, so I can't direct you towards
Mhm.
them. But just be on the lookout. I'm assuming sometime in the next year they'll start rolling out. So,
Sounds
but
good.
yeah. But until then, Thunder Guardian, man, get on it.
Alrighty. So I'll everybody should check that out, and check out the other projects that we are featuring over on Comic Watch on our weekly roundup, and we'll be in touch.
All right, man. Thanks, Chad.